Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. Today we're discussing the latest version of the FP Journe Linesport collection, Chronographe Monopussoir Rattrapante. This may be the most intriguing 44mm generation, of course, grade 5 titanium blackened. This is without the rubber bumpers, so it's got a cleaner aesthetic with the bright yellow lacquered dial that gives it a unique personality and a joie de vivre. The watch is 44 in diameter, but surprisingly thin. In fact, it's exactly as specified. They claim 12.1 millimeters, and I measure, wait for it, 12.1 millimeters. From link to link, the total distance across the wrist is 52.3, but I find as 44mm watches go, this is one of the easiest to wear. Comfortable, flat, flush, and very, 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 very light. You can see on my wrist it'll easily slide under a cuff, and being almost a lugless design, it fits so well that I could recommend it for a wrist smaller than mine, a little bit smaller, let's say 15 centimeters circumference. You're probably wondering, and it would be a reasonable question, how heavy is this watch? With all of the links in the bracelet. And fortunately, we have Sammy the scale here. We can answer that question. Sammy says hello. It is 82.83, so that is going to be 82.69 if you were to remove the tag. I've previously weighed it, and we know for sure. All right, so in other words, this watch is incredibly light. It has a total mass of under 3 ounces for those of us in the old colonies. Taking a quick look at the design of the bracelet, it's a well-established bracelet design that dates back to the original Linesport watches of 2011. You can also see that these watches feature a unique case. While Journe can be accused of overusing the same case design, that's primarily on the dress watch side. We don't see as many of the sports watches. You can see the removable links here are fixed in place using screws. So if you want to size this, you can easily do so with a screwdriver. Also, not terribly well advertised feature of this clasp is that it does have a micro adjustment. There are quite a few spring-loaded ceramic pin snaps in here to help this bracelet retain its snappy tolerances over time, as the metal can never wear down those ceramic pin snap balls. And you do have out here just a little bit of, I guess, a framing of the FP Journe logo, but it's no longer the big block of rubber that it used to be. Taking a look in profile, we now have polished crowns, polished Journe double dimple unsigned knurled crown, no logo, but you know who made that. The bezel insert is a tachymetric scale that can be used to gauge the speed of an object, such as a race car across a kilometer. And actually, that insert is one of the few pieces of ceramic you'll ever find on a Journe watch. Polished in profile, it's nice and thin. You can see there's a nice delicate bevel that runs all the way around the case, and the finish, with the exception of the polished elements, is all a matte media blast. Taking a look at the dial, well, that's a blast in another sense, about as colorful and charming as any Journe sports watch other than the great Chronographe F, the Ferrari. That's lively, colorful, and unconventional, but that one lacks the luminescent punch of this one, which has these lovely solid block lume elements. If you look at the numerals, you'll actually find they have a black border, but they're three-dimensional blocks of lume. They're not actually printed features, they're actually applique, which I find to be really, really cool. Taking another look, you can see that the dial is actually made of aluminum with a yellow lacquer on it, part of the reason the watch is as light as it is. And then we've got this lovely media blasted frame that encloses 2 smoked sapphires, allowing you to see some of the underlying mechanism, including the chronograph minutes counter and the running seconds. The date is back on a Journe sports watch for the first time since the Octa chronograph was discontinued in the mid to late 2000s. And we'll just make sure we're out of the danger zone there. We actually do have 2 different discs, and there's a quick set for them. Journe using a font that perfectly matches the rest of the numerals on the dial. What you can also see is that the watch is actually a split-second chronograph. It might look like a conventional chronograph, but what appears to be the reset trigger here is actually the split for the Rattrapante. Now, we also have sort of a monopusher system. So like a monopusher, if you start it, then stop it, you have to reset it. So that's important to keep in mind. It is a unique setup that allows you to split the times between two concurrent events like race cars around a track to learn whether the gap is ebbing or flowing. Now we turn it all over. And the watch includes a movement that is exceptionally large. Now, it's made of aluminum. What's kind of cool here is that the dial and the movement are aluminum. FP Journe stopped doing aluminum cases long ago because there was an issue with degradation of the cases, but being hermetically sealed in the case, the movement and the dial are better protected, so they can still be made of the lighter material because the aluminum is lighter than titanium. This movement is the caliber 1518, so 15 French lean in diameter. It is very large at 33.6 millimeters in diameter, 29 joules, 3 hertz beat rate, free sprung balance. It's got 2 column wheels, one here and one here. The split second mechanism sits at center, and the clutch is actually an oscillating pinion, which is a type of lateral clutch that has very little inherent play. So it is an extremely precise system that produces almost no tangible jump when you engage the chronograph. So most lateral clutch chronographs have a lot of initial jump and gallop. They gain time instantly when you start them, and that should not be the case. Here we have a system that simply proceeds. So the oscillating pinion is making a big comeback on high-end chronographs from Journe, yes, but also, among others, Debitoon and Richard Mille, because it gives you the beauty of a traditional lateral chronograph, which is easier to see than than a vertical clutch. And the lateral clutch chronograph normally has some imprecision in it that you can engineer out with this oscillating pinion design. So it's a very cool watch on a lot of levels. And of course, 30 meters water resistant. It is a sporty watch. I always tell people not to swim with them, though I've seen it done without tragedy. Still, don't tempt the fate. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.